Right. That was pretty much all the basics that we needed to cover in order to start the UCAS calculator project. Now, there's still a lot to come. We haven't even started the code yet. That was all basics, so I'm just going to delete that. As you can see again, those are the script tags, and everything in between them is the JavaScript code. Now, let me just refresh this and go back to 0. Right, nothing is in there, everything is set up. And let's start the JavaScript code. Right, how do we start, approaching the problem? Like, where do you start from? How do we do it? We need to come up with a code that takes the actual value of this drop-down menu list and stores that value in a variable, and then add those. I can do the same thing for all of those units, then add all those variables together, and then the value that we will get, as we said before, will be one of those numbers there, and then those numbers we will convert them to those UCAS points using a dictionary. Then we finally have to display that on the web page there. So to start with, we're going to have a list that saves all those grades. So instead of declaring a single variable for each one of those 18 different units, we're just going to have a list that stores 18 different elements, all under one variable, an array or a list. Grades, good. Now we're going to have a for loop. So you should know what a for loop by now. We're going to start that from I equals 1 all the way up to I is less than or equal to 18 this time, since we have 18 different units. Then I++, we're just incrementing that variable by 1 every time we loop through this loop. And then we put the full for loop, everything in there should be indented inside those curly brackets. Now, how do we get the value of the drop-down menu list? I have a link here for a W3 Schools template that takes care of that. So in their example there, they have a drop-down menu list that has those 4 different elements: apple, orange, banana, and pineapple. And then you choose whatever you want, click try it, and then it alerts it there. So in this code here, what we're really interested in is those 2 lines there. We don't want that alert, don't we need it, because we're going to be using that and not displaying it or alerting it. So let me just copy that code. As I said, I'm not a professional. I just looked it out, and that's what I found. Paste that there. Get rid of the alert with its brackets. And then let's just try to understand the code here. So they just declared a variable. They named it X, and that X is basically the drop-down menu here. So that is X. And then they got the element by its ID. What does that mean? So they go to the select tags there. We have select tags here for each one of those units select tag, and then you take the ID of that. Obviously, you're gonna have to have an ID for each one of those, and IDs are always unique, so you can't have similar IDs for two different units. So that ID should be there. We're gonna have to change that mySelect thing, and then selected index. Right. Then the next line takes care of the option that you chose of that drop-down menu list. So if that was X, then the next line takes care of those choices there. They store that in a variable. So that's not even stored in a variable yet. Let's just try to output that. So console.log, and then right. You remember when we talked about concatenate strings? This is a bit difficult here. So what we're trying to do here is every time we loop through this for loop, we're gonna be looking at different elements. Each element has a different ID, but all those IDs starts with the string grade, like that. So if you see grade 17, grade 18, grade 16, and all the way from 1 to 18 basically. So we're gonna have that grade there, and then concat with parentheses inside, and we put the current I value in that, in those parentheses. So what is this doing? Again, it's sticking the word grade with the current index number of that for loop. So when it first starts with 1, the first time it loops through, the I is 1, and then it gets the element by ID. What's the ID? The ID is grade 1, and then that just took care of of this drop down menu here. So it knows what HTML element it's exactly looking at, because it's referring to it by its ID. IDs are unique, as we know. And then we're just gonna console.log, we're just gonna print out the option of that drop down menu, the value of that option. Right? What does that mean? What does value mean? In your code, you're supposed to have values for each of those options of that select tag. So you have all those options, pass, merit, and distinction, unclassified as well, and then each one of those has a value. So there's 7, 8, 9, and 0. You can have 70, 80, 90, and 0 if you want. It's not going to make any difference at all. Okay, let me just save that, refresh the page, and hopefully I didn't do any mistakes. Cool. What did it do? It printed out the number 8 18 times. Why did it do that? Well, because we have when the page loads up, these are automatically set to be merits, and each of those has a value of 8, and so it printed 8 18 times. It didn't print them one underneath the other. It's just the way it does it, because they're not different than each other. So it just puts them all as one line here, and it says it printed it out 18 different times. Let me just try to just to make sure that it's working. So instead of this, this selected here, it just shows that when the page loads, set it to merit. If we just took that and we put the distinction there, distinction there. So that's 2 distinctions are already set when the page is loaded. Refresh that. As you can see, it automatically sets 2 distinctions in those 2 units, and it prints the value of those distinctions, which is a 9, not an 8. It prints it twice, and it prints the 8 for the other 16 units. It prints it out 16 different times.